Hello and welcome to How to Helen, where you learn something different every day. In this episode, we will be replacing the front brakes and rotors on this 2009 Porsche Cayman. Now this procedure should also apply to other models like the Porsche 911 and Boxster as well. In replacing the brake pads and rotors, the first thing we need to do is reduce the amount of brake fluid in the brake fluid reservoir. The reason we need to do this is because when we decompress the brake pads, brake fluid would rush back to the brake fluid reservoir, and this might cause the reservoir to overspill if it's completely full. So the first thing we need to do now is open the access panel, then remove the cap. There would be a filter, so take out the filter. Now, as you see, I laid down some paper towels just in case I spill some brake fluid when I'm reducing the amount. So make sure you have your car protected because brake fluid is very corrosive. Now make sure you have a container to put the brake fluid. So with a turkey baster, suck some brake fluid out of the brake fluid reservoir and move it on the new container. Okay, that should be enough. Close your container, put back the filter, and put the cap on the brake fluid reservoir. Make sure you wipe off any spillage that has occurred. Let's start by removing the metal ear clip on the retaining rod. Next, with a punch tool, push out the retaining rod from the retaining clip and brake pads. Now remove the brake pad sensor from the retaining clip. With that, you should be able to jiggle around the retaining clip. Now take out the brake pad sensors with the needle nose pliers. On top, there's a plastic cover for the bleeder screw, so just push that up so you can take off the brake sensor. On the ear of the brake pad, position the spreader on top of it so you can spread out the brake pads. Now you can take out the brake pads. The brake caliper is held up by two T55 Torx bolts, so use a T55 to remove them. I almost forgot, there's a 10mm bolt that's holding the brake line in position. So remove the 10mm bolt so we can move the brake line and caliper later freely. When you remove the caliper, make sure you have a caliper hanger or a block of wood or something to rest the caliper on so that it doesn't hang on the brake line. Otherwise, you might puncture the brake line and it will leak brake fluid. So I'm using a jack stand to put the caliper on. Here's the caliper bolt, and we will rest the caliper on the jack stand. Next, we need to remove the rotor screws. Now, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but even though this Porsche Cayman is a German car that's made in Finland, the rotor screws are JIS standard, or Japan Industry Standard, number 3. With that said, you need a JIS screwdriver number 3 to remove this. If you use a regular Phillips screwdriver, you are prone to stripping the heads. So make sure you get a JIS standard screwdriver. The JIS standard screwdriver will fit exactly on the heads of the rotor screws. That way it will not strip and it will have maximum contact with the head of the rotor screw. So let's take this off. This particular one I'm using is an impact screwdriver. Let me give you a close-up of the head of the screwdriver and the screw. And as you can see, when I put it together, the screw is completely contacting the head of the rotor screw, which means no chance of stripping the head. Okay, let's get the other one off also. Alright, same thing. It didn't strip the head because there is maximum contact with the head of the screwdriver and the rotor screw. Okay, now let's take off the rotor. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the old brake disc rotor and the new brake disc rotor. Before I put the rotor, I'm gonna clean the hub first for maximum contact. If you are reusing the rotor screws, soak it a little bit with WD-40 so it can minimize rusting. Now, let's put the new rotor in. Align the holes for the rotor screw on the hub. Then put the rotor screws in. Okay, I'm taking it off again because there's a sticker on the rotor that I need to remove and I don't want that there. So let's do this again. Okay, with the sticker off, put the rotor back on the hub. Then screw in the rotor screw. If you have brake cleaner, spray around the rotor to remove any dirt that have occurred during our installation. And to remove the excess sticker on the rotor. Now we can install the caliper. Before putting the caliper on, put some tread locker on the caliper bolt. Just dab a little so it can help in holding the caliper in place. Not too much. Put the caliper in position, then put the bolts on. Tighten the caliper bolt to 63 foot-pounds. Reinstall the 10mm bolt for the brake line bracket. Do not over tighten this, just get it slightly snug. Insert the new brake pads. If your new brake pads and rotor came with lubricant, lubricate the retaining bracket. Lubricate the retaining bolt as well. Now let's reinstall the metal bolt. Now before you do, make sure that the hole is facing up. That way we can put the metal ear clip easier later. Install the metal ear clip. Open the rubber cover for the bleeder screw again so we can pass the brake sensor through it. Now clip the brake sensor on the metal bracket and then reinstall the brake sensors. And there you go. And that is how you install new brake pads and rotors on this 2009 Porsche Cayman. This has been another episode of How to Helen. My name's Jeff, and thank you for watching.